5 years after the 50th anniversary conference. I assume there'll be a 100th anniversary conference if the SEC survives, and I'm looking forward to that one too. My association with the SEC goes way back. As the Dean told you, in the 1970s, I was in the Solicitor General's office, and I helped the SEC lose some very prominent cases, including Blue Chip Stamps and Chiarella. I'm sure the SEC could have lost those cases on its own, but it was fun to have participated along the way. As the Dean mentioned, 25 years ago, at the last conference on the anniversary of the SEC, Dan Fischel and I presented a paper about mandatory disclosure. We concluded that compulsory disclosure could help solve a free rider problem that might lead each firm, on its own, to say too little, because from society's perspective, what really matters is comparative information, but each firm would be inclined not to help investors with information that could compare it to other firms, in part because the benefits of that disclosure leak. That is, they're enjoyed by the investors in other firms, and in the interest of each firm, they might want to keep that confidential. Now, whether the benefits of mandatory disclosure exceed the cost was and remains an open question. Likewise, it's questionable whether reciprocity could be achieved when firms could choose to go private. But at least there was potential for gain. Fischel and I assumed, as did others during the 50th anniversary conference, that all important details about what firms did with the money they raised would be governed by state law. The benefits of reciprocal disclosure were national, but the benefits of firm governance were internalized to the investors in each firm. Now, that assumption that state law and the Articles of Incorporation controlled would have been controversial at the SEC's outset, but by 1984 it was common ground among students of corporate and securities law. Why it was controversial in the 30s and the 60s, settled in the 80s, and controversial again today is my topic. I chose the subject and title of this talk in homage to Ralph Winter's paper, published almost exactly 30 years ago, entitled State Law, Shareholder Protection, and the Theory of the Corporation. It's the single most important contribution to the economic analysis of corporate law since Ronald Coase published The Theory of the Firm in 1937. Only the roughly contemporaneous paper by Jensen and Meckling about agency cost and the theory of the firm is a serious rival to Winter's. To understand why Winter was worried about a race to the bottom, and why I'm worried about that today, I want to take you back to the 1970s, when Ralph Winter was a professor at Yale. He didn't turn into a federal judge until 1981. The dominant academic view in the 1970s was that Delaware had waged and won a race for the bottom in corporate law by offering ever more favorable terms to managers, who then moved their corporation to that jurisdiction. William Carey, who was chairman of the SEC from 1961 to 1964, wrote the most famous denunciation,